Hello, everyone. I would like to thank you for joining us first. And I don't know if you're hearing me well. Okay, good. So I'm really pleased to be presenting at this conference, not only because I'm honored to speak at one of the biggest pharma events in Algeria, which is SIPHAL, and also because I will be talking about my passion, which is my job. So when I started back in 2010 in regulatory affairs, which was by chance, just because maybe someone over there believed in me and said, okay, let's hire this fresh graduate. But over the course of time, from a company to another, from manager, a mentor, from colleagues, we learn. But we also face challenges. We deal with very complex situations. But also we celebrate successes. It's only in 2018 that I met compliance. And that was instantly very interesting and exciting for me as an opportunity. Because somehow it connected with one of my goals in life, which is seeking excellence in life. And that's why today we will be talking about navigating regulatory excellence, where compliance is the guiding compass. Let me introduce myself first. So my name is Rima BELFEDHAL. I'm currently the Regulatory Affairs Compliance Manager at a pharmaceutical company with a regional role. So my responsibility is to oversee regulatory affairs activities over a region called Rima, which has Maghreb countries, some African countries, but also some countries from the Near East, like Lebanon, Iraq, Iran, and so on. I'm also, of course, a pharmacist, graduated in 2009 from University of Algiers. So together today, we will be exploring the waters of regulatory affairs in the pharmaceutical industry, where compliance is the guiding compass, or the true north, like some sailors or navigators would say. We will not only see it or explore it at local level, but also at an international horizon. So today I will not be presenting procedures and regulations. It's more about the mindset and the approach that we need to have when we're working in regulatory affairs. It's about the compliance mindset. And before embarking into this exploration, I would like to offer some definitions first, especially for my audience who isn't really familiar with regulatory affairs, not sure. So at the beginning, so what is regulatory affairs? So regulatory affairs is a job or a function which was initially developed by the desire of governments to protect the public health by controlling the safety and the efficacy of products. Before, in the past, we had a lot of historical incidents which caused harm, a lot of disasters that happened because of unregulated or poorly regulated products. And since then, there was a regulatory reform where regulatory agencies have been created, regulations came out, and then the situation started to become more complex and detailed. So that's why the need to have a regulatory affairs department within the companies became a must. So regulatory affairs are responsible mainly for some of these actions that I've listed here, like providing guidance on regulatory requirements, preparing submissions, communicating with regulatory agencies, ensuring labeling and packaging compliance, also complying with post-marketing requirements, developing global and local regulatory strategies. So we can see that it's a liaison between the health authorities and the company. And without it, we cannot ensure compliance. So on the other hand, what is compliance? So the generic term, or let's say the etymology, comes from the Latin verb complere, which is having all parts or elements or lacking nothing. So complere is also the source of the English word complete. Compliance consists of being then obedient to the other party and fully meeting demands. If we talk about the definition, which meets the etymology, it's the act of conforming to established regulations, laws, or specifications. Now, if we talk about so this compliance as like a term, then we can understand that it's applicable to all kind of regulated industries, not only to the pharmaceutical industry. It can be like in oil and gas and so on. Even within the pharmaceutical industry, it's not limited to RA. So it can be in finance, in manufacturing, in clinical trials, etc. So any regulated activity. Now, if we talk about compliance in the pharmaceutical industry, it means that we need to adhere or conform to all the regulations governing the pharmaceutical operations and the drug product life cycle activities in general. As you know, in Algeria, we have the specific role of the qualified person, or directeur technique, as we say in French. So the qualified person has the legal responsibility or is the primary actor of ensuring compliance within the company, ensuring that all operations like importation, manufacturing, distribution are operated or compliant to the regulations. Now, this, as we have seen earlier, it's a responsibility which is shared with regulatory affairs. And this is where the idea becomes overwhelming or confusing. It's when we don't understand the limits between the qualified person responsibilities and the responsibilities of the RA professionals. So I know that in some pharmaceutical companies, the qualified person department can be split from RA, or sometimes it's merged under one department. Sometimes one person as a QP can also act as an RA head or RA professional. And this is where connecting the pieces becomes difficult. So I believe personally that if we don't clarify the roles and responsibilities between the QP and the regulatory affairs personnel, we cannot expect to navigate regulatory affairs towards excellence. Here I have a proposal, let's say, to clarify the roles and responsibilities. We need to have clearly defined job descriptions. This is not only to have the accountability shared, explained, but also to avoid any risk, because when we have responsibilities not understood, the risk is then high, because there might be a mismanagement of crucial activities regarding compliance. And also by ensuring a training and education to all the personnel, we can upskill the levels or the capabilities of the RA personnel to the needed expertise for compliance. We need to ensure efficient collaboration and communication channels between the two parties, regulatory affairs and the qualified person. So this is like a harmony between these two actors of compliance within the company. So I would say like a captain and the navigators of the ship. So if I refer to the captain as the qualified person, so he has the primary responsibility to ensure compliance, like we said. But also they need to have like a clear understanding or expertise in the good practices like GMPs, GDPs, etc. And we've seen also that he has the legal responsibility to ensure compliance with regulations. Now, what about the regulatory affairs navigators? So they need to have in-depth knowledge of regulatory guidelines, submission processes, post-approval activities, just like any navigator would use maps and instruments to guide the ship towards the right direction. They need also to participate in strategic planning, ensuring market access, and navigating the complex regulatory landscape. So with that, they need to meet the regulatory standards throughout the life cycle of the product, like submission of the marketing authorization renewals, submitting the CMC and labeling updates, and so on. So now that everyone have clear roles and responsibilities, and the crew of the ship is well settled, we still can face challenges in the regulatory affairs or in the pharma world, let's say. We can have challenges in the globalization when we're working at multinational companies or when we're aiming for an exportation. We have regulations which are all the time changing. We can have unclear processes, whether internally or externally. Not talking about the complexity of submissions. We can also have difficulties or let's say challenges with cross-collaboration between the other departments, like having supply chain constraints, having resources constraints, etc. This is just examples to show you that we can face a lot of challenges in the regulatory affairs waters. But if we don't have the right mindset and the good motivation, we can never navigate such a complex environment. The first skill for me that is needed to ensure such a job is having the problem-solving skills. And I like this quote from Einstein, which says, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and only 5 minutes thinking about solutions. And this is what we will be exactly doing today. So I would like to invite you to kind of an interactive session. I wanted to have a case scenario to show you the importance of compliance, rather than boring you with some regulations. So to understand the case scenario, we need to understand the structure of, let's say, an investigation. So when we face a challenge or a non-compliance or a non-conformance, we need to have a structured, let's say, approach, and also a problem-solver skill, as we said. So we start first by identifying the issue. So what is our issue exactly? And then we need to understand why. Not to go through the root cause analysis, but just as a beginning to say, why is this a non-compliance? Is it because we didn't meet this and this requirement? Or because we did miss a procedure, an internal procedure, or an internal guideline? We need to clarify that at the beginning. Then we assess the risk on the business, on the patient, on the product quality, or even on the product supply. We don't want to have stockouts in the market or to have a product which doesn't meet the quality, needed quality for the patient. So this risk step is done to anticipate any action that we can do immediately to mitigate the issue. So this is as a first action of correcting the issue. Then we deep dive into the investigation, and that's where we have a lot of techniques, and my colleagues from quality assurance quietly know those techniques. We can also have root cause analysis techniques and so on. At the end, when we did have all this time to reflect and to understand the issue, we can then propose effective solutions to mitigate this non-compliance. So to start with our first case scenario, I wanted to bring this example because for me it's very important, but also it can affect all departments in the pharmaceutical industry. It's about the documentation. But for that, I want to have you imagine in a case with me. So imagine you are a new hire in the regulatory affairs department. So you started your day with motivation and engagement, and then you come into the office and you find this pile of documentation, disorganized, piles over the desk, everything left unarchived. And we can clearly see that there is a poor archiving system or process. Moreover, or the next day, you receive a notification or a query from the health authorities. A query from health authorities requesting you to provide a specific section of the CTD Module 3, like stability data, in the scope of variation submission. And they need to understand what is the shelf life that was registered for this product. So then you start to look in this documentation. You don't know from where to start. You check and everything is disorganized. You cannot locate the product, you cannot locate the therapeutic area, no chronological order, and then you start to panic because there is a deadline to provide the response that the health authorities ask you to respect. So at this time now, you go and check the records, the electronic records. You find some documentation, but you are not sure. Was this submitted? Was this approved? We don't know. You come over an email of an old colleague who just says, I think that the submission of the variation of extension has been submitted, but I'm not quite sure of when. So you check the email and you don't find any attached evidence. Then you would look as well into the electronic archives, as I said, and no submission received, nothing is there. So this action of retrieving a document becomes a nightmare. So today now, I want to invite you and tell you, if you can tell me what the issues you think are now in this situation. And I would like to have your thoughts about this quickly. I don't know if you can bring the mic. So who wants to participate? Just telling us what did you understand from the issue.
Est-ce que quelqu'un voudrait répondre aux questions de l'oratrice?
So the problem is to search for the documents from the archives.
Yes.
Messy archives. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what are the issues that you identified in these scenarios? What are the problems that you are seeing here?
Mostly we search for the variation if it has been submitted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And for query from members requesting specific section extension.
So we cannot retrieve it. We cannot retrieve any evidence of submission.
Yeah, we need to search manually for the documents, I guess.
And we cannot find them.
We cannot find it. That's a very yeah. We can maybe talk back to the authorities, like
yeah. Okay. So
to
you
search
have
more.
already anticipated the actions.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, that's all I thought. Welcome.
Thank you. So, if we summarize what happened here, so we have documents which are buried in clutter, hard to locate. We have also a lack of structured chronological classification, whether per product, per therapeutic area, no classification, no order. And we also have an inadequate system for archiving the electronic records. So when we click, we don't find documents, also we cannot find folders, etc. It is clear that there is a difficulty in retrieving missing evidence of this variation. Now you would tell me it's just documentation and everyone is dealing with documentation. That's fine, then the person can just reorganize the desk and have everything quite organized in a few weeks. But let's remember that we're talking about pharmaceutical industry, we're talking about regulatory affairs, where documentation is crucial. Why? Because it's an evidence of GMP, of a good manufacturing step. So if we cannot find that the variation of extending a shelf life, for example, from 24 months to 36 months, then we cannot prove that the product has the quality standards they needed to have the shelf life extended. So we cannot prove this to the health authorities, nor get it approved by them. So it's a documentation provided as or received as an evidence of compliance. When we have documentation, it's like just an organized form of information that can serve as an evidence proof. We also said that we have seen that email from a colleague saying that I think that I found that the submission was done. And that's a rumor. Why? Because we cannot endorse it with a document, with a real original documentation. So documentation helps to replace rumors with facts. It also can be like a procedure or a guideline or a guidance within the team. So it provides instructions and guide how one of the team can execute the tasks. Also, it can provide full traceability about the history of the product life cycle. Now, if we want to understand also from a regulatory perspective, what happened? So if this documentation was not found and we couldn't know if the submission did take place or not, what requirements did we miss here? So we will see what are the pharmaceutical regulations in Algeria that are impacted. So I like to consult or to check the regulatory requirements in this website of the health authorities. And it's a collection of all legal texts that you can really find in the site I mentioned here. When it comes to submission of variations, so we can see in this article number 2 of the regulation published in 3rd of October 21 about the modification of the registration license, that the submission of modification should be done to the health authorities and especially to the agency of the pharmaceutical products. Moreover, it says that any major modification should be submitted. So when we say major modification, it has a direct or significant impact on the quality, safety of the product. And here we have like a term that we use for chemical manufacturing controls, which is CMC, and those are this is the documentation within the CTD that gathers all the activities related to the development, manufacturing of a drug product or a drug substance, but also the manufacturing process, the quality control measures, the stability data, etc. So we can clearly see here that we were not conforming to these regulations, because if we couldn't retrieve that evidence, it can mean that the submission wasn't done. And when we are in situation of doubt, we assume the worst. Now what about the international guidelines? So imagine that person who was hired was working in like a multinational company. And this multinational company is abiding to international regulations. They need to conform to those regulations, like the one of the FDA and the 21 CFR, Part 11, talks about the electronic records and electronic signatures. It also has the ALCOA principles, and I invite you to look for these principles because it gives us like a clear guidance on how we need to keep the records, the electronic records. We have also the EMEA data integrity guideline, and the most important one for me is the GDP guideline, and that's the Annex 5 of the GMP guidelines of the WHO publications. So we have seen that in this non-compliance, we didn't conform to the local regulations, but also to the international guidelines. And we can see why. How this documentation issue can have an impact, and a direct impact on the product quality or on the patient. So first, it can have like significant risk on the business continuity. You would say why? So imagine that this multinational company would have an audit. And this audit will like check if the documentation is conform to the GDP that we have seen now from the WHO organization. So the inspection, the audit, or even an inspection that can be triggered from the local health authorities can have serious impact on the business continuity. So it's the inability to resolve the query efficiently, which can pose like a risk to the overall business, because the person will not be able to meet the deadline that was requested by the health authorities to provide the evidence. We can also have like legal consequences with potential lawsuits because we didn't submit a variation which is in the regulation required to submit it. We can also have a reputation damage. So if we had like an inspection from the local health authorities and there was like a major finding, so you can imagine the impact on the reputation of the company. And when it's a multinational one, it's not only at the local level, but it can go really beyond the country. The most important risk that we want to avoid here is the risk on the patient safety. We found that this incomplete or missing documentation did have like an impact. Why? Because we couldn't find an evidence that the shelf life extension did have like the right documentation of safety and also of quality. So we don't know now what we are proposing to the health authority as a quality documentation. And then we have also a risk of product recalls. So imagine the health authorities asking us to stop supplying the product to the market, because there is this shelf life extension that wasn't evaluated by their services, so they are not controlling the safety of the product. And then we can also have like a direct impact on the consumer trust with all these risks assessed. So now that we have seen the impact assessment, we can start the investigation. And why do we run an investigation? It's to identify the root cause. What is the real reason behind this messy documentation, and why there is this difficulty of retrieving documents?
Docteur Belfedhal, il vous reste 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So we start that by doing like the WH questions, why, like what happened, why, where. We ask the personnel when the issue did happen, etc. And we collect information, we write the investigation summary. With this data, we also perform the root cause analysis, and there are like a lot of techniques to do that, to identify what is the reason behind this issue. In this case scenario, we can clearly see that there is an absence, or like, let's say, I would propose or imagine, because still it's a fictional case, there might be an absence of internal procedures describing how the documents should be archived, or how the handover should be done. Because we know that this person was newly hired and they didn't find any handover documents from the previous professionals. There is also an absence of change management process, because we didn't document the extension of the shelf life. We didn't keep our evidence for each milestone, to submit the variation, to wait for it to be approved, and then implement it at the manufacturing site. Now, with this root cause completed and identified, we then move to the corrective and preventive actions. So here I try to think about some corrections, or kappas, as we say, that I would have proposed on my day-to-day basis. So the first correction, which is an immediate one, is to reorganize the documentation of the RA department with a clear action plan for both digital and physical records. The next action is a corrective one, and it would be to re-prepare the variation dossier submission of the shelf life extension and resubmit it to the health authority. So in this case, we are like reassessing the shelf life extension and also complying to the health authority's needs. So we can have with this corrective action an effectiveness check. And an effectiveness check is enrolled generally when we complete the corrective action. It's on a duration, certain duration, so we verify if the team member during like 1 year or 6 months, if they really did the archiving as per the procedure. And then we propose also a preventive action, which is establishing a new SOP, or a procedure, covering the documents archiving process and aligning it, of course, with the GDPs. Another preventive action would be to train the personnel or the team members on this new SOP. So by that, and I almost finished, we come to the end, and we can have like some key takeaways of the impact of our actions on an international level. So we need to understand and adhere to international guidelines and standards when we're working at a multinational company. And especially with all the efforts of the harmonization, so we need to understand what are the ICH guidelines, etc. We also to maintain high quality standards in the pharmaceutical products, knowing the GMPs and all the good practices which are published by the international regulators. And also, the last point is about the regulatory intelligence. If we don't gather the new and the revised regulations across the globe, so we cannot analyze, interpret those to be able to adhere to them and ensure compliance. So at the end, compliance, as I said, is a mindset. And you can learn to swim by reading. Of course, we know that we need to learn to swim, we need to jump into the waters. So I wish you all good luck, and thank you so much for hearing me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Belfedhal.